All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Limitless. This is episode 10 of season one. Crazy, crazy that we're here. And on today's episode, I have the pleasure of chatting with Stanley Rashai. And Stan is a passionate freelance content creator, and he tries to capture unique, relatable moments in every image that he takes. And Stan also believes in producing visuals that the audience can connect with the centerpiece being emotionally compelling and thought-provoking images. Whether to encourage the viewer to reminisce on memories or reflect on current positions, even evoking the visions for the future, Stan uses his creative capabilities to and uses lighting, angles, subjects of his work to craft visuals that gently intrude the viewer's consciousness and encourage them to feel and think. Stan is a friend. I know Stan personally. We've chopped it up a couple of times, so I'm super
Yeah,
excited to have him here.
yeah,
Stan, how you doing today, bro?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me on here. It's always nice to be on the podcast, but also it's better to do it with the homie, and especially like we were just talking before, like we've known each other for a minute, and like just seeing how our journeys have kind of like been on these highs and lows, and like like I'm excited for this conversation.
Yeah, bro. As you said, like from way back, highs, lows, we gonna
Yeah,
take it back, take it to the beginning. So, originally, you're from Zim.
yes, sir.
Talk us through like the feel for Canada. How does Canada come about from Zim?
Yeah, I moved here for school. One of my good friends, actually, Baku, introduced us. Had been here a couple months prior, and I was like, for me, it was wanting to go to a place where I can kind of like not reinvent, but like have a clean slate and just push myself and be in a place where I don't really have family or maybe have a couple of friends and just kind of see who I really was and not be in a place of comfort. And just Vancouver just happened to be the place. It was either Vancouver or Winnipeg. I saw the weather out in Winnipeg. I'm like, yeah, we ain't doing that. And also, yeah, I just wanted a clean slate and just come here. And like, I had friends here already too. So I was like, Vancouver seemed like it was a vibe. And yeah, that's how we kind of made a journey here.
Oh, nice. Uh, I like that. I like that. Wanting a clean slate is something that all of us desire. And at that age, bro, like, do you even know what you wanted to do?
No, absolutely not. It's so funny because like I look at what I was studying at that point and what I'm doing completely like polar opposites. And even then it's
Right.
like, yeah, it's like I remember like when I was doing computers, like the whole thing I was like, oh, like, I just want to learn how to hack shit. That's literally it. I was like, I'm good at computers. Then you go through the program, you're like, there's a lot of maths. I'm like, this ain't it. This like I remember taking those math class. I'm like, bro, like you're just getting by just I'm like, I passed this class. And I'm like, then I have to take another one? But that's the thing, the coding was fire. But I think for me, as I look back to my journey, I've always been a creative person. But I think growing up in the environment that I was in, the creativity wasn't always something that was nurtured. And I think coming to Canada and coming to Vancouver was specifically where, like, you have all these opportunities. I just tried a couple of different things and I finally found my voice. And I think that's been an interesting thing where it's like, I always liked photography. My dad had film cameras and it was a big thing, but it's never something I thought I could pursue like to make money. And even like now, I look at it now, it's been like a gateway to the things I'm doing now. It's kind of like a stepping stone. It's not like the ultimate goal, right? So yeah, it's been an
Right.
interesting journey for sure.
I love that, bro. Like sometimes it's trial and error, plug and play,
100%, man.
plug and play, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful to see that you tried something, it didn't work, you
Yeah.
pivot, and then you tried this other thing. And at the beginning, I'm pretty sure it wasn't like as direct and straightforward as it is right now.
No.
So when you look back at that initial first step in Canada, new culture, what was it like to kind of like move away from family? How did you adapt into that at the beginning?
You know what's crazy? I actually had this conversation with a lot of people, and I think at that age I was so delusional because I didn't understand how much of a big step I was making, moving so far away from home and just starting this new life. And I look back now as I remember like it's like 18, 19, just
Hmm.
moved. Like I uprooted my life with no like safety net or whatever. And just it was one of those like I think having grown up in Zimbabwe, you just adapt. Like there's no
Mm.
other like excuse. You just adapt. You just figure out what the environment is. And I'm also grateful having grown up there because the schools that I went to, the environments that I was in, made me very versatile. So like I'm a very multifaceted person. So a lot of people like are often shocked with the things that I do. Like people don't. I'm a trained archer. I was in the choir. I did all these arty things. And even for me, I love Greek mythology. So like being in a school that I was in, that really was really trying to shape men holistically and make
Mm,
us multifaceted really helped me adapt. But also, I also had to kind of figure things out here too, man, where it's like it's a completely different culture, where it's like one of the things too, like even I went from a place where like I was predominantly there was black people around, and you come into a space where like you were now engaging with other cultures, but also within my culture too. Like like you realize there's different types of Zimbabweans. There's also different types of Africans. You know, I had traveled from a young age because my mom was a flight attendant, and I'd been pretty like exposed to a lot of things. But coming here was like like was a completely different ball game, and then it's one of those things
right.
you just adapt, and you realize like I did it at a young age, and I think a lot of it I owe it up to like being delusional. I didn't know what I didn't know. I was just like here, just living.
Right. I want to touch base on something you mentioned real quick. Like
Yeah,
I didn't know this
yeah.
about you. Like you did archery and then you did Greek what? Like there's a lot of
So
creativity
yeah,
outlets that you did. So like when you say you felt like back in Zim you were kind of boxed in
yeah,
or you weren't allowed to pursue your creative outlets, to me that sounds like creative outlets.
yeah.
When you look at Stanley now with what you're doing, how can you connect the dots between the creativity back then and now?
I think a lot of it has been me uncovering who I am as a person. I think I heard this concept of like there's the shell, like we're like a snail. There's the shell version of ourselves, and there's the core. And I think what often happens is you're trying to bridge that gap of that in between, right? I think a lot of me was the shell was like the outside version of who people perceive me to be, and the core is who I was as a person. So like now I look at it like people don't know I'm a huge history buff. Like I love like even like before I left, I wanted to do like I wanted to be a lawyer, so I took like English literature, like I did history. So these were all these things that were like I didn't know were like creative outlets. I was in the choir, I acted, I did all these things, and I played sports. So it's like looking back now, I'm like it's those moments I think that were kind of like the first domino that fell. And then when I moved here, it's then like now you come to a place where like there's like photography, there's videography, there's modeling, there's all these aspects that necessarily weren't as available to me back home. And then you come here like, oh, like I just tried different things. And as I look back at my journey, it's just been me connecting the dots, me just trying stuff. So even the
Mm,
archery thing, what happened was when I graduated from high school, I worked at my high school and they wanted to start this new program. And they're like, hey, like I was a student teacher. Then they're like, hey, like we need someone to kind of take the class. And all the other teachers didn't want to do it. So me and my best friend were like, we get paid to do this, and this is kind of like I'm like
fuck it.
you gonna pay me, yeah, you're gonna pay me like $500 for the weekend, run it. And
Right
like
it, yeah.
yeah, so I got trained as an archer, and then like even like now like I'm doing it still, but like it was just something that just happened. And then when I tell people that, I think it's also the thing too, it's being put in a box, because when people see black men specifically, there's often this perception of who I am. Like I'm a very big dude. I'm not, when you first meet me, your perception of me is a lot of the times very different. Like one of the things I've heard is like, you're not what we expected. Like, I'm very soft spoken. I navigate my life in a certain way. So when people look at me, I'm a lot more intelligent than they think, because they just think, oh, he's just a media. But like, no, like I actually like I love poetry. I write poetry. Like I create content. I do all these things, and these are all things that again, like because I look back, like my final years in high school, I did poetry, like English literature, like something we have to do, like and analyzing it. I know how to make sonnets. All those different things that when people look at me like, what that? Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah.
kind of tying back to your question, it's like it's been. I think a lot of it has been me tying different aspects of my life and bringing them together. Right. That's been the thing.
Right,
So, and I think
right.
certain dominoes had to fall at certain points. Because had I, for example, not grown up in Zimbabwe and had that experience, then moving here and then being in the environments that I'm in, and then even like now, there's certain things that have happened. I'm like, I could have never have even imagined. Like even
Right.
me being a photographer and videographer was something I never had even imagined. I'm also a model. Like I throw events. I do so many different things, but it's like all these dominoes that had to fall at certain points where I'm just like, that made me kind of fall into it, or like I had to make certain pivots, right? So
Right.
yeah, I think it's like we're all creative. I realize we're all creative. I think sometimes we just don't know we're creative. And I
Yeah.
think when we've thought about creativity, we just think leave it to the arts, but like someone who is an accountant is creative because the way they think is like, they're able to their brain works a certain way. People who are like builders, like they're able to like piece things together, like architects. Like it's creativity is not just limited to like photo, video. It's like the way you see life, right? I think we
Yeah,
just don't know how to channel those things. Yeah.
yeah, it's just not limited to like the arts or
Yeah.
the artsy side of life. Like there's
Exactly.
creativity in all aspects. So
Yeah.
I mess with that. And I think one thing you keep bringing up is photography and videography. So if you don't mind taking us through the first time you picked up a camera.
Crazy enough, I think it was my second year in university. I then ended up switching to this program called SIAD. So it's like interactive art, so it's photo, video, graphic design, because the computer science thing was just not happening. And then I never planned on actually.
Hold
Yeah,
on. Before we get
yeah,
to that, the switching part, because I know
yeah,
there's an aspect of, I don't want to call it failure, but there's an
yeah,
aspect of, damn, I really can't hack that. But I thought I was good at that. I thought I was good at,
yeah.
like, how did you make peace with that? How mindful were you when you were switching from one avenue to another?
Honestly, again, going back to delusion, it wasn't a matter of me failing. I think it was there was an aspect of it. I'm not gonna lie, but I think a lot of it was intuitively. I knew this is not what I was called to do. I think there was a
Right.
part of me now as I'm older and I know how, and I check in with myself. I'm able to realize I knew that's not the direction I wanted to go. So again, at SFU, they make you take classes in different faculties. So I do that when I took the graphic design course. Something about that was like, oh, like, this is dope. I can see myself doing this for the rest of my life. And it was nice with that program. Like all my credits were then able to like switch over. So like when I did the coding class, I didn't have to take one of them, and a lot of them were just like easy because I love the coding aspect of it. That now I was just able to add the graphic design and the photo and the video. So what actually happened in my second year, one of the classes after I just switched into this program, one of the classes I wanted to take was full, and then my advisor was like, "Yo, like this is the photography class that will help you." And in my head, I'd asked other friends, I'm like, "This is an easy A, bro. Like I just have to show up, take photos." I'm like, "How hard could this class be?" It was
Right.
a lot harder than I thought it was, but it was one of the things I'm so grateful for because my professors were super dope and super young. They were both. One of them was from New Zealand, one of them was from Australia, and they had been like dope photographers. Like they like worked on like the tutorials, e-commerce, bunch of crazy stuff, and the
Right.
class was very immersive. So you learn like every aspect of it from like the lenses, and we got to take out the gear. So for lenses, equipment, editing, lighting, how to position models, how to tell a story. And that kind of like something about that excited me. So I took it in the spring and then can't even remember what year it was. I took it in the spring and then that summer got my first camera off Craigslist. I'm like, what? Saved up a little bit of money. And for my birthday, that was my gift to myself. And just
So
that's
this is
what
when you
started.
pick up this is when you pick up the first camera.
First camera, my little T.
And what year is this and what camera was it?
I can't even remember what year it was, but it was like Canon T4i, and that was like the camera at the time. And this
Yeah.
guy on Craigslist just like sold me an extra lens, and that kind of what started it. And then after that, I took the video class. And then the next semester after that, I took the documentary class, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like there's something there. And then for me, I'd always wanted to run my own business, and I didn't know why. And then one of my friends, Buck, was like in the entrepreneurship program. He's like, yo, bro, you should take this faculty, like take these courses, like, it doesn't stop you from graduating. And like, I think it'll be beneficial because he had done it. And in that class, I was then able to merge the business aspect of it with my creativity. And then at that time, my business partner, she was in marketing. That's how we start this agency. So like now we are like 21, starting a creative agency with some experience, but actually not knowing what we were really doing at that point, to be honest. I look back and I'm like, we were just a lot of the time just winging it.
Just vibing.
Just vibe. Like
Just vibing.
the school was funding us. We're like doing stuff. We're like, damn, like we're actually doing the thing. Right. And just going back to it, it's like it's been an interesting journey because I think a lot of delusion of just trying stuff. Like we tried stuff and just failed. And even something
Right.
I try to go back to right now, just trying stuff and just like not being afraid of failure, because we have to fail for you to succeed. I think it's just like what you do after you fail, right?
Adversity breeds character. Like
Yes, sir.
the best way to understand what you're made of is not when the tide is riding your
Yeah.
way, but it's when the tide is going against you. That's when you gotta dig deep,
Yeah.
figure out how am I gonna balance, how am I gonna navigate this direction before I drown. Or
Yeah.
drowning can lead to death. So it's like sometimes it's like death of your old version, death
Yeah.
of a relationship, death of a there's so many different deaths that we grieve over a lifetime that it just doesn't have to be necessarily the death of a loved one.
Yeah.
So yeah. First camera, what was your first project and how did Outlandish become into play?
Damn, I can't even remember my first project. I think when I first got my first camera, I did this thing every Sunday. I would just ask some homies and we'd just go out and shoot. I did it for like 6 months and just ask whoever wanted to just go shoot. And then it kind of just started. And then I got asked to shoot an event. I think it was one of the student union events or something. And I was like, I
Yeah.
could actually do this and get paid. And then just figured it out. I was, doing school, working at Foot Locker. And then I think a lot of it too, it's like when I look back at how Outlandish has been birthed, I actually don't even know who came up with that term. Because originally when I started my Instagram page, it was motherland photography because I wanted to give homage
I
to
remember that.
to
I
yeah
remember that.
to
Yeah.
being from the motherland. And then someone was like, bro, like you have a very outlandish personality. And at that point I was also doing a video, so I was like, I didn't just want to do photography. And I was like, yo, I like the ring of that, like outlandish. And then I added the visuals to it. And then the thing that stuck out to me about that, because when you look at what the word actually means, it's like, strange, bizarre, very like, just out there. And that's me as a person. I think it was one of the first dominoes that helped me understand of how to build a brand centered around me. And yeah, this is me. This is how I dress. If you look at me, like rings, I'm a very out there person. Like I have red shoes, I have yellow beanies. I'm just that person. And I think that's been the birth of it, like me learning who I am as a person. I think photography has been one of those things that has helped me to channel that. And like, yeah, it's been an interesting journey. Again, a lot of delusion. When I started that, I had no idea, but then it's been like a lot of full circle moments because I was then a club promoter. Because funny enough, the things that happen after breakups.
Oh, you're trying to get in there.
Hey, listen,
Okay.
you said we're gonna get down and dirty. So at that point,
Sir.
I think it was my second year. I just got out of a long term relationship, and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do what they say in the movies. We're just gonna out there, just like join a frat and just wild out,
Live a little.
live
Live a
life.
little. Yeah.
I joined a little bit of that street life, and that's the thing. Like, because of just my person, I'm a very friendly person, outgoing, so it's very easy for me to make friends. And what ended up happening was, I joined a fraternity. Shout out Phi Kappa Pi, and one of the guys was a promoter, and he's like, "Bro, like I like your personality, I like your your taste in music. I feel like you would fit in." And what was happening was, at that point, I was going to those clubs that they promoted all the time, where it's like I would show up to the place and I spoke. Like it's so funny how it even started. I was the type of person to show up and start talking to the bouncers because no one ever actually said, "Yo, what up?" and know their names, that type of thing.
Right.
And I would skip the line all the time. They kind of knew me, and they're like, "Bro, like you kind of just should do this. You know a lot of people. You're in university. Do you want to get paid to like promote and get free drink tickets and get paid?" I'm like, "Well, I'm already spending a lot of money on drinking and cover
Hey.
anyway." And I'm
Hey.
like, "I can get the homies in." I'm like, "Say
Bruh.
less."
Say less.
So
But you know what's funny about that? It's like that money part, just as a sidebar, like, bro, where were we getting the money at that age?
listen,
Because if you ask me, bro, I was broke as hell at that time. I
no,
was like
honestly,
broke as hell. But how
honestly,
the hell was I buying shots, with whose money?
and honestly, I look back because I look at a lot. It's not like I made any substantial purchases at that point. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
travel. I didn't do anything. But I'm like, where that money like went, I actually don't know. So, and it's not like at least now I understand. Like I actually put money into like my gear and like the things that I wear and that type of thing. But I'm
Right.
like, then I'm like, I wasn't like I still dress nice, but I'm like, I wasn't buying the stuff I'm buying now. But it's just
Mm-hmm.
interesting. But I was like, even then, I was like, like something's gonna give because I'd wake up some morning, and at that point, I was going out quite a lot. I was like, maybe 3, 4 nights. Yeah, I remember because especially in the summertime, there was nights like would go out like we knew where to go
Back
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, even Sunday, bro. Like, and it got to a point where I was like, like this is not sustainable, and I need to make money. But it's so funny because that's one of the dominoes that had to fall because me then working for Hyphy. opened up a lot of opportunities because I got to meet a lot of people. So even at that point, how my photography page was able to grow because I meet people and just like following them on Instagram. That was my main page, right? And that's also helped me grow my page. And then I ended up being mentored by one of the guys who was shooting content. Shout out Jason Vaughn. And I was like, yo, like I just want to learn how to shoot club photos, and would you mind mentoring me? And what ended up happening was I started covering for them when they needed people to cover. And then he's like, yo, I'm leaving in 2 months. Do you want to take over? And then I became the guy for a
That
while.
is crazy.
And it's
That
crazy.
is
That's what I'm saying.
crazy.
Like a lot of people think like, and especially if you know how the nightlife photography business works, it's
Mm,
like, it's the same people shooting for the same time. Like it's very hard for you to like, there's no like job applications where it's like, oh, like, hey, like, it's kind of like, you kind of need to have an in, and that's kind of like what catapulted a lot of like opportunities I made. I've actually gotten some clients from people in the club, like, yo, like you shoot club stuff, but what else do you shoot? I met
right.
a lot
Right.
of artists. Like it's been like, I look back, even like sometimes, I get memories from like my stories. I'm like, damn, like
Yo, yeah,
I've lived life.
take us through that shoot with Nas. I think you did a shoot with Nas. Was it Nas or
No,
Fabulous?
fabulous,
It
bro.
was fabulous. It
Crazy.
was
Again,
fabulous.
shout out
Yeah,
to my
I wanna hear that one.
shout out to my boy Buck. So what happens is, I'm already shooting something else. Buck calls me probably at 9 p.m. He's like, bro, are you free right now? I'm like why? He's like, yeah, well, like, I guess I can't remember what the situation. I can't remember if someone's his shooter couldn't make it, or something had happened. Someone had bailed. And I was like, yo, can you shoot? So like, okay, I'm shooting at celebrities for something. So I end up getting my boy to shoot that, and then I meet them in Yale Town, and then I meet him, chop it up, like spend the whole night with him. I end up leaving until like 4 in the morning, and then he's like, yo, like let's take some fit pics, and we take the photos. I'm like, again, like I've had these moments where it's like it doesn't sink in until afterwards. And then he posts them a couple of months later. And it's like one of those moments where like, damn, like, like I actually did that. So again, it's like one of those things, a lot of like dominoes, a lot of things had to happen. And I think I'm
Mm,
grateful for the people who've been in my life, people like Buck, who's opened so many doors for me and I think have genuinely been there. But also I had to live up to the standard, right? Because people just don't give
right.
you a call, because it's also like I'm an extension of him now. So people just don't give you that call unless you've done the reps. And that's the thing. If you look at my catalog of work, like I've shot so much, man. Like I've met a lot of people, like especially in that industry. Like I'm actually one of the plans. I'm not gonna say what it is, but I have this plan of an idea I have with all those photos that I've taken throughout the years. But even then, even at the crib, I actually just printed like all the photos of the artists that I've taken. I've like met people like Black Coffee, like Ty Dolla Sign, Retro Booming. Like it's crazy. Like I have some photos of Drake that night he came to Fortune. I'm like Jack Harlow before he was Jack Harlow. Like
Bro.
it's I have a cat.
Bro.
I look like I have stuff in my hard drives. I'm just like, when I drop the idea, I'm like, this,
Yeah.
it's gonna.
Now
But
we waiting.
yeah,
We waiting. We waiting. Work on it. Cook. Let it cook and remain
yeah,
humble, bro. Cook and remain humble. Shout out to Buck, man. That
yeah,
that that guy plugged as hell. Always got good energy.
yeah,
You gotta get him up here, bro. I need that nigga on the pod. But
yeah,
anyway, so side note. So in terms of like the photography journey, it allowed you to meet a lot of people. You've transitioned from the club photography to like actual like events, and you do your own events. You shoot
yeah,
podcasts. You've done a lot of things.
yeah,
Now, from that journey, I know there's been ups and downs throughout the
yeah,
journey of life. There's always ups and downs,
yeah.
and I'm curious to know how that affected your mental health when you're going through these ups and downs.
Hmm.
Because the nightclub life it's dope when you're
Savage.
doing something,
Yeah, but
but at the
it
same
wrecks you.
time,
Yeah,
it can really fuck you up because like if you're not careful, you're
yeah,
not sleeping well, you're not
hundred
eating
percent.
well, and these habits kind of trickle down to your overall
Mm-hmm.
for mental health and wellness.
100%.
So just out of curiosity, like throughout this journey and trying to like navigate mental health, how has that been as you've transitioned to be the brand that you are? Because I feel like right now you're in a very good space, which I'm happy for you.
Yeah, it's and even then it's funny. Like it's a lot of highs and lows. I think for me, what had to happen, I think at the end of 2022, I was in a space where I just wasn't happy. A lot of things in my life
Take
were
us,
just,
take us through the
yeah.
sequential moments that led to that unhappiness.
At that point, like you said, like I was shooting heavily, and I was shooting 4 nights a week, shooting content for a CrossFit gym. So like I'd be up super early in the morning, like 5, and then be out in the clubs until super late. I was in a long term relationship too, and because of the version of myself that was then, I wasn't showing up in that relationship in the way I should have. My dad had also been really sick in hospital, and like even financially too, like I wasn't making as much money as I should have because I didn't know what I didn't know, and just, it was also post pandemic too, so it's like still kind of recovering from that. I'd been a bad friend and bad partner, and just like wasn't stewarding the things that I'd been doing, and also like faith has always been a big part of my life, and like that was not really existent. So I remember end of 2022, kind of I'd reached this moment, this like you hit a wall, and I remember
Right.
just making this prayer. I'm like God, like remove anything and everything and anyone that is like stopping me from being the best version of myself and growing. 2023 begins, and like my life was on fire, literally. I don't recommend, if you're a believer, I don't recommend you make that prayer because ultimately,
On
I take
fire in a good way, or
like it was on fire in the sense of like I had to go through the fire to be purged. The
right?
biggest things I had to be purged of that version of myself because that he wasn't showing up, but also I had to be purged of certain people who were in my life, not because they're bad people, but I think we were just going separate directions, and then that separation needed to happen. And also, I wasn't taking care of myself. I take full ownership of everything that has happened. I don't blame anyone else. It was all on me. But I think a lot of it too, like I realized as I've reflected now and how I wasn't able to show up in that relationship because, I was always working the club and so I wouldn't be able to give her attention. And also I hadn't dealt with the trauma that I now realized what had come from childhood, right? So I reached this rock bottom where I'm like, me and her break up, and I really appreciate her having me in my life because she held me down in that season that we were together. But I wasn't the version that she needed, and that separation needed to happen. I also lost friends too, and I
Mm,
realized some people, not that they're bad people, because I watched this thing with Trevor Noah. It's like I don't think it's that we're bad people or good people. I think we're just not in a good friendship, and I realized they weren't the people I needed or our season together had ended. So I lose friends, a lot of it too because I was a bad friend.
mm,
We break up. I'm living with her at that point. And I don't know where I'm going to live, and also I'm not making money like that. So I'm like,
mm.
I literally reached the rock bottom moment, and then now everything is just hitting at once. Also, my dad sick. We've had a very tumultuous relationship, and like there's now like I can't really go home, and like like he might not be there tomorrow. So like there's all these
Damn.
conversations that haven't been had, and it's just all hitting
Right.
me at once. And I'm just like, I remember one night just like sitting there. I'm like, and it's been one of those moments where I've had that intrusive thought. I'm like, why am I here? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, I've had people who really showed up, and my friends really showed up. I really had. I remember having this conversation. Shout out to Taff, big bro, and he gave me this book that really changed my life in that moment. Light Up by Young Pablo, and it really starts with like having radical honesty with yourself. And I don't want to spoil the book, but basically starts off with this guy in this dorm room, like ODing, and he's like, "How did I get here?" And I had that moment of like, like, how did I get here? So as I go through the stage and really answer this one question, what makes me happy? Because I think for a long time I'd been living life for other people and not for me. And ultimately I hadn't checked in with my emotions and me, and that then affects everything else. So also at this point too, because I'm working the clubs, I'm so unhealthy. That's the heaviest I'd been. I mean, if you know me and you've seen me, man, I was always dieseled, man. I was like lean, mean machine. I remember we worked together and like I was so overweight. And then I read another book. It's called The 5 F's of Life. And we see basically breaks down life into these 5 aspects: faith, family and friends, fulfillment, fitness, and finance. And I split everything into those aspects of my life. And then that's how I was just kind of able to get out of rock bottom. And I think a lot of it too is like who I had around me. I think one thing Taff said this to me, and I never forget it. He's like, bro, like you're in a season right now where it's like you're like an injured athlete, like you've tore your ACL, and you need to go through rehab, and you're gonna have crutches. Right now, you're gonna have to have people around you who are gonna be crutches until you're in a stage where you can walk by yourself. And I really had to lean into that. But a lot of it too was like I had to do the work. There was no more like excuses because I felt for a long time I was wearing this mask, and I was like, I got here because of me. There's other
Mm-hmm.
circumstances that kind of led to that, but like ultimately, I
It's
am the
you.
issue. I am the common denominator in everything. And even like now, I try to take full ownership of everything. When it's like whether it's like a failed project, failed relationship, failed anything, it's on me,
It's on you.
right?
It
Because
boils
either
down to you.
yeah, either I allowed that to happen or I was the cause of that situation. Going left, right? And I think it's been those moments that really kind of have led me to be where I am right now. Even talk about men's mental health. I think a lot of it too. I put this post out that went viral when I was just like talking about being in my feelings and what that meant, and me dealing with like those intrusive thoughts and being suicidal, not being able to be vulnerable and struggling with that, and also the issues that come with men being vulnerable, or like society we live in that makes it difficult for men to open up and be that version, because especially growing up in the African context as a man, there's certain things you can't do. But
Yeah.
you realize like emotions are not a bad thing. It's like you being able to control your emotions, actually the strength that comes with it. So that journey kind of it's been a lot of dominoes. And even then too, like as I was going through my own struggle, I lost one of my good friends from the fraternity. This guy had, you know,
Damn.
was, living life. He was recovering. Had been sober for a while, recovering addict, and like, being sober. And I don't know, somewhere down the line, like something happened and he kind of just lost control. And then we, as his friends, also didn't check in on him. And then he passed away. And it's kind of those moments when I think we often forget we're going to die at one point, and we just live life recklessly. And then when you see someone who's close to you dying, you're like, damn, like that could
This
be
shit
me.
is real.
Yeah, this is real.
This
And
shit is real.
I try to live each day to the max, because like I don't know if today's going to be my last day. And that made me reassess, together with everything that happened, kind of made me reassess my life and where I wanted to go and who I wanted to be, and just answering that question, what makes me happy. And the crazy
Mm-hmm.
thing, as I was going on this journey, I was now asking my friends or people around me. And then I realized this ultimate thing, that people don't know what actually makes them happy, like
Mm.
genuinely makes them happy.
Quick question. Quick question. What makes you happy, Stan?
For me, it's been a constant change, but I think for me, it's being the best version of myself and allowing people to do the same. That's really what it is. So, funny story, when I was, I think
Before you
16,
go,
yeah,
do you tie your happiness to your identity?
no, it's not tied to my identity at all, because that can change. And I think a
Mm.
lot of ultimately what has happened is my happiness is based on my faith. There's this
Mm.
concept where it's like, I'm a Christian, I believe in God, and it's like, the more I seek Him, the more I've been able to find myself. Because the way it was explained to me, it's like, like God is ultimately our manufacturer. He has the manual, and we have to go to Him to get the instructions on how we're supposed to live our life. And the more I've been kind of having that separation, not doing what I want to do, and like that's why like a lot of things, as I look back, how I've been able to be in the positions I'm in and certain things that have happened has been not by design, but some things were by design, and some things like just had to be shifted.
Mm.
Because there's even a moment where like even in this breakup and all that stuff that happened last year, where I started going to the church that I go to now, shout out Love Quest, and I'd never been to this church or anything. And the week before that, I prayed and I was like, God, am I supposed to fight for a relationship? I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing in my life. And then I had this come to Jesus moment where I don't know what else to call it. And the pastor comes, he prays for me, and he says things that for someone, he didn't know me, and it was like he says like I made a video about it, and that's my testimony. And everything that he said on that day is either has happened or is actively happening. And it's like that's why for me, like that's what has helped me come, like even when I'm like when my world is on fire, I'm just calm, bro. There's this peace that I have. I'm just like, okay, cool.
You don't get to that point if you don't do the work. Like you don't get to that point where
True,
like your
true.
world is burning
Yeah,
upside down. You don't have the the things that you desire in that
Yeah.
moment, but the faith that you have. So I'm hearing like for your mindfulness, there's a lot of like faith in God. That's where you draw your desire to, not desire, but your kind of like your essence for
Yeah.
life.
What? Yeah, it's definitely, that's the major thing for sure. But there's other things now. So even if you look at my page, people are like, bro, you work out a lot. Honestly, working out was part of the way I was, because when I read this book, it's like you have to find healthy outlets of releasing those emotions. So during
Right.
that time, one of the things I did was work out. One was also to get myself into better shape, but became a healthy outlet where like now a lot of the times my friends laugh like when I post, because I do this thing where every single day I work out, I have accountability partners and I post. And my friends can tell when I've had a bad or good day based on the workout and story that I posted, right? But also a lot of it too was like I was able to now to have spaces where I could articulate my emotions with my friends and just
Mm,
vent, but also not just vent for them, also like hold me accountable, like, hey man, okay, like you feel this way about this situation, you're entitled to feel this way, but also you're not looking at how you played into this. I
right.
also started doing therapy as well. That really helped me give good, healthy coping mechanisms. Because even last year, I was in a situation where a lot of my friends have never seen me get violent or be aggressive, but there were a lot of situations that had I not have done the work and been around certain people, you'd have heard Stanley has beat someone up. And it was a situation that must have been justified, but it was that moment I was like, I have to leave nightlife because it was a very triggering environment for me, but also I had to stop drinking so I can be in full control of my body. And I went sober for 8 months. I was working out consistently and just doing the work in therapy, reading books. Also,
Right.
people came into my life who actually helped me to be more emotionally intelligent. And I'm
Hmm.
still on that journey of like learning to be vulnerable and doing that. And that's why even the things that I've done has been almost like selfishly for me, for the younger version of me. These are tools now I wish I'd had sooner. Use them to help other men and other people. So yeah, it's been
Hmm.
and thank you for saying that, because a lot of it too, sometimes we don't take the credit for the work that we've done on this journey. It's not just like,
Mm.
you don't just wake up one day and you're not that.
It's not magic.
Yo, yeah, it's
It's
not
not
magic.
magic.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody the other night and I was telling them how your life right now is, I equate life to like being a mathematical formula.
Hmm.
So for a formula to work, if you did math, for a formula to work, you have to plug and play numbers.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're decoding that formula to get to
Yeah.
like a certain answer,
Hmm.
certain numbers won't work
Yeah.
and certain numbers will give you the right answer.
Yeah.
That's how I equate like life in terms of like trial and error. Like when you're
Hmm.
figuring things out, you're literally plugging and play to this formula because we have the formulas.
Yeah.
We're not the first human beings to live life.
Yeah.
Every single generation knows if you sleep well, if you
Yeah.
work out, if you
Yeah.
maintain healthy relationships, your overall wellness will be good. The formulas are
Hmm.
out there. So it's up to you to choose, okay, do I wake up early to go to the gym or do I sleep in and not go to the
100.
gym? Because now overall, the reason I'm using the formulas is after you plug and play these formulas like for X amount of time,
Hmm.
the consistency and the duration of that will show after years. So this version of you
Hmm.
was being made 5 years ago. You were making those plug and play decisions five
Hmm.
years ago because now you're
So,
able to show up as yourself
yeah.
fully based on this sequential events that looked so trivial back
Yeah.
then, but now they've formulated to become Stanley that's like
Yeah.
that you are today. So I
Yeah.
always tell people like when you see somebody doing stuff today, don't even like ask them what's their story.
Eh,
What's their story? Like
100%.
where are you coming from to get to the point where you're able to authentically and confidently show up as yourself in these spaces?
Hmm.
Because there's something that triggered or made them become who they are. They don't get to that point just by waking up and saying, yeah, I can navigate life now. What's
Yeah.
up? That's not how it works.
And that's the thing. I think that's how you actually start the healing process. I think a lot of it's people don't have those honest conversations with themselves, like, how did I get here? Right.
Hmm.
And ultimately you have to have that conversation with yourself, and then others ask you, because what has happened for me to be in the space that I had to have those conversations with myself, but also sometimes you have like, I think blinders. You're looking at it like the horses, like they have, you only look at a certain way, and then you have other people who come and say like, hey, Stanley, I notice when you're stressed, you go quiet. Why is that?
Mm, mm.
And then those questions have made me then reflect. And I think that's the thing too. Like a lot of the time, I'll equate it to a tree, like a fruit tree. We're looking at the fruit that the tree produces, but we don't realize for it to be in that state, it has to start in the roots, right? So everything has a root cause. And a lot of it too is like you look at
That
everything
was
has a reason.
nasty.
Yeah. And a lot of it too is like, as I've been doing a lot of stuff with like reading psychology and all that stuff, I'm like, especially for men, like every version of you comes out. It depends which version of you comes out. Sometimes it's the 9-year-old version of Greg, it's the 16-year-old version of Greg, or it's 21 version of Greg. What we don't know is like, why does that version exist? And even then, like now, like I'm going back to the ownership thing, like when you're triggered, you don't realize that when you're triggered or someone pushes that trigger, why is that trigger there?
Mm.
Right. We have to deal with that. That's where the ownership comes. But also the person who has triggered you, then like you then have to make them aware, hey, this is a trigger for me and this is why. And then you guys work together. Like it's your responsibility, then they support you. For example, let's just say for me in a relationship, this is a trigger for me. Because of the environment that I grew up in and seeing my parents' relationship, arguments and shouting is a big trigger for me. So, and if anyone I've dated, I'm like, hey, like if we're going to have an argument or constructive conversation, don't raise your voice at me, don't swear. That is a big trigger for me. The moment that has happened, I've been triggered, but also I've had to learn why is it a trigger, and I've now had to go back to that childhood version of me and heal that version so that I can not be triggered by that, right? And it could be whatever it is, like like when you look at and that's I think sometimes where we have to give people that grace, because people always look at the behavior and don't ask why, which is a crazy thing.
The story.
The story, and
The
that's once you
story.
understand the story, then it's like again you then know how to show up in a certain way, but also it allows that person to then like start doing the work, but also the person has to do the work.
Bro, I could go, this segment right here could go for hours, because like I think there's one, I love, thanks for sharing that. That was dope. Great awareness, great connection between what triggers you then and now, why
Yeah.
that happens. I find it so hard, like, and I find it so disheartening in this current generation where two people cannot work through a situation that you're trying to work on actively. Because to heal that child, you have to embrace that child. If I give you a hug for today, hey, yo, Stan, nice to meet you, you're doing great, hug, I go away. If I consistently do that every other week, before you know it, your mechanisms or your affinity for my presence
you're
will grow
accustomed to that.
fonder. It grows fonder. And that's the same way you gotta go and hug the younger version of you for seeing things and experiencing things that you had no control over. It was never your fault because you were just a child. So you have to go back and hug little Stan consistently for you to be able to get to a point where if somebody triggers you or if that situation arises, you are more capable of handling it in a better way than a destructive way, right? But the person you're dealing with, if you get triggered for whatever reason that you haven't had a phone conversation with little Stan, I feel like currently everyone is like, you do one shit, I'm out. You cannot fuck with me. I got options. There's an illusion of options, bro. Like no one is allowed. People don't want to work together, and I feel like two people coming from two different families and two different households, it's like, hey, meet my needs, and she is screaming, hey, meet my needs, but then we're not listening. You're just shouting and I'm shouting, and it's our little inner versions that are just saying, I just want to be taken care of. But do we actually take the time to understand why are you shouting? Why do you want me to understand that?
Yeah. And do you know what it is? A lot of it is because that's been the deception that people are supposed to make me happy. Your happiness is based on you. And your healing is based on you. You ultimately have to heal yourself and make yourself happy.
Right.
Because if your happiness is dependent on your status, your partner, your friends, your title, because those things can go away. Right. And that's why for me, like that's been the state of peace where I'm like, I'm happy with the version of me. And like you said, like you have to then go back and do the work and heal the version of Stanley that was, And that's the thing, ultimately too, like this is where like the ownership and the accountability comes in, where it's like those things happen. Don't not acknowledge them. But also that can't be an excuse for you not moving on. Because and the thing I heard is, yeah, you it's like you can only take account for the day. There's 2 days you have no control over: the day you were born and where you were born, and the family you were born into, and the day you die. But you are responsible for the decisions you make in between those 2 days. And that's been the thing for me. It's so funny. Like now, even my struggle with manual, and this is the thing too, as I've delved into, like especially in that men's mental health space too, what has happened a lot, especially for men. I'll speak for men specifically, and this is my own take on it. When you look at a lot of, like, again, this is the history geekiness coming out, where it's like you look at all these societies where like the Romans, the Spartans, even African warriors, any warriors of some sort, there was a rite of passage where you were 16, you had to go through these things for you to become a man. And as we have gone through this age of, evolution, we've kind of missed those rite of passages, right? Or if they are, there's very negative things where it's like, for example, like, men are told men don't cry, or, you only have one girlfriend, or like, from a young, there's all these negative things with them. But also we haven't been, there's the flip side of like, how do we teach men to control their emotions? And that's the thing too, like, especially right now, it's like, there's these polar opposite ideas that are now happening where it's like, you can't be too emotional, then you're a simp, but you also need to be a stoic, where it's like, no, you actually need to be in the middle, where it's like, there are times as a man, I need to take my emotions out of it and just show up and do what I need to do, but I also need to come back and be like, why do I feel that way? Because that's how you become a holistic person. Like, emotions are not a bad thing, but your lack of ability to control your emotions is the issue. So going back to the situation, yeah, yeah. So for example, let's say you and I get into an argument, right? And I punch you. There's nothing wrong with me feeling agitated, but it's how I respond. Instead of me saying, Greg, bro, like what you said was wild, and communicating that way. But there are some situations that do require violence because people are disrespectful. And I think sometimes, I'm not saying go out and punch everyone, but for example, like let's say like if you threaten my family or my friends, best believe some hands might be thrown, because I think, so again, it's learning what to do in certain environments, right? And I think that's been the biggest thing where it's like the lack of accountability and ownership. And there's so much noise right now, especially in this generation, like what you said, it's like, for me, the people I try to surround myself with is people who champion me. And what does that mean? Is like, I can be the full version of myself, my best and my worst. I can have you can be there for me at my best and at my worst. And what that means is if I mess up, you as my friend go like, yeah, bro, like you messed up in the situation, but I got you. How can I support you? But also when we're winning, bro, like Stanley, bro, I love what you're doing, And that's been the thing. Like now with my friends, we do this thing where it's like, before it's evolved. It's like, like if I'm in the fire, will my friends come and pull me out of, like there's a burning building, will my friends pull me out of that burning building? But now it's evolved to like, no, like I'll look at a building there and like my friends be like, bro, Stanley, that building you're about to go into, bro, I see smoke, bro. I advise you not to go into it. I know you're gonna do your own thing because I'm a very stubborn person. There's certain things my friends are like, bro, like you shouldn't have done that. I run into that building before the fire even starts. They pull me out, but then it's gone to a place they're like, so we pulled you out the fire, but we told you not to do this. And that's a level of like, we have a symbiotic relationship in the sense of like, it's a two-way street. It's not just me pulling them out of the fire. And then, there's a level of accountability, but also there's a level of grace. I'm like, okay, you're struggling with this. How can I help you? I'm just a support system, but ultimately it's your goal to do. And that's the thing. As humans, we're never built to be alone. Yeah. Especially as men, I think there has to be those levels of relationships where it's like, for example, people go through stuff like, you go through a breakup, like you need to be able to talk about that instead of us just going to the club. Yeah. Yeah. Crazy, bro. Crazy. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. They expose you. Yeah. They expose you. Yeah. 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 Honestly, every relationship, to be honest, bro, every relationship shapes me in a good or bad way. I think a lot of it too Um, I think we just go through certain seasons, and I think also like again going back to the you or the common denominator, right? The version of you in that state determines the people around you. I think for me, like as I've gone through certain seasons in my life, I've understood like I was a good friend to certain people, or a good partner, and there's also moments I was a bad partner, or a terrible friend, or a terrible son. And that's been the thing for me. Like I look back, for me now, the relationships that shape me the most right now is my mom. My mom has always been my champion with everything I've done. She supported everything I've done from jump, from day one. Like for me, even like when I started doing this photography stuff, the modeling stuff, everything. I remember like I did a Saks campaign where I'm like naked. My mom was like, "Okay, okay, model," and then she sent me a photo of me when I was like 5, doing this modeling competition. She's like, I always knew you were different, right? And then lately, it's been like my sister. She's my sister's younger than me, but like my sister has been like pulling through and like really done like being there for me. And even like if you look at all like my page now, my sister's managing my page. Like I run through stuff with her, like all the ideas, like the workouts, the coffee hangs, all those things has been like her. She's like, bro, like you need to be doing this because she does marketing. She's like, you need to be doing this. It's like, how do we get you more in front of like people's like for you page, all that stuff. But it's also been the friends that I've had, people who I've experienced, whether we are still friends or even not friends. I appreciate them because they've either, like I said, like exposed me to show the good things that I have in me, but also the negative things I need to work on. And shout out to those people too, and also like old partners too, people I've dated. Because I mean, they, yeah, 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 yeah. Honestly, I still struggle with that. To be honest, like moment of vulnerability, I still struggle with that. Even the last 6 months, even last 2 years, really, gained friends and I've lost friends. And I think a lot of it too is like I've learned not to take anything personally and kind of not be emotionally detached, but I just, my peace comes from like me knowing like from above, like God is bringing the right people into my life. Because one thing we don't realize is like there's a verse in the Bible that says, there's a season of sowing and there's a season of reaping. There's a season of crying, though I can't remember what it is, but it basically talks about like there's a season for everything. And also I've also been heavily delving on this concept of the the butterfly effect. Like the evolution of it goes starts as a caterpillar, it has to be in that cocoon, and then comes out as a butterfly, right? Something that happens all the time as people, and I think the version of you needs certain people. So I look at the version of me when I was 18, the version of me at 21, and the version of me now at this age is very different. Even like, yeah, even like now what I require in friendships is very different. And how I show up in friendships is very different because I've been able to go through these cycles where I was a bad friend, but I was also a good friend and unappreciated. So now it really goes back to what I said in like that Trevor Noah interview I talked about in this Diary of a CEO, where he's like, there's no good or bad people. Maybe you are just in a bad friendship. So you and I might be great friends, right? But to another person, you might be a bad friend, right? Because we're just not compatible. And I think for me, as I look back at my healing journey, I look back and I really understand like I'm really the villain in a lot of people's stories. And I've had to accept that because rightfully so, like my actions warranted me being the villain. But I've also been the hero in other people's stories and vice versa. Some people are villains in my story, but there's also people who were, heroes in my story. And like, there's this quote, I think it's from Dark Knight. What is it? Hold on, let me look it up. But it basically something along with like, you live long enough. Like, what is it? Something to do with along with yes, and yeah, and that's the thing. Ultimately, I think you have to be a villain in some people's stories, and that means like, for example, like if I'm setting a boundary, right, and you don't agree with it, it's going to make me a villain, right? And I think ultimately, what has happened, that thing that's helped me been able to be at peace is like when people leave my life and I'm the bad friend, I have so much respect for them because they're standing on 10 toes down and saying, hey, our relationship isn't working anymore. And for my own peace, I have to separate. And I'm like, I have mad respect. It sucks that separation happens, but I'm like, I respect you enough because like you made that decision, right? It's been tough to digest, but also again, I look at it the same way. I have mad respect for them. Like, I wasn't showing up in the way that they needed. And that doesn't make me a bad person. It just means that we weren't compatible. I was just not the right partner for you, right? And vice versa, they might not be the right partner for me, right? So I look back, yeah, and that's the thing. Sometimes at the time too, because I look back, like I often think about this. It's a thought that has been happening in my head. I'm just like, man, like if let's say like if my exes were to date the version of me now, would it work? It'd be. But maybe are they also the version that I need? And that's the thing. But also that's the thing for me. Like I'm not tied to an outcome anymore because I'm like, I just learned to take things as they come. And for me, ultimately, the focus has been doing the work on myself and being the best version of myself so I can be a better partner. But also, too, sometimes you need people to heal. I realize as I've gone through those relationships and friendships, they've taught me things about myself I need to work on, but also things I need to consistently like not change. I'm a very like, here's the funny thing. It's like sometimes I read this quote and I heard it somewhere. It's like the very same thing that makes you attractive to some people ends up repelling you afterwards, ends up repelling them afterwards. So, and then even I'll actually expand. So it's crazy. I've had crazy 2 weeks where I've had these serendipitous moments. So I was shooting for this guy and he does a podcast and I met this guy and his name's, I think is Dan Dalton and he's crazy entrepreneur. Like this dude's making millions. And I was shooting an event yesterday and he doubled down on it. And he's like, you need to be the best version of yourself. And one thing is going to happen. One and two things is going to happen. You're going to repel the people that aren't supposed to be in your life, but you're going to be attractive to the people you need in your life. So me being outlandish and being me irritates a lot of people. Like I walk into certain rooms and I can already tell someone bugs me. It bugs them. But also there's people like, damn, like I like this guy. That's my guy. And like that's the thing. So even like now that's been like as I've been navigating my brand where it's like when you look at my brand and you look at me, there isn't a separation. I am one and the same. So there's one thing you can tell, like I post about my faith. You see me at church. I post about me being in church and how I incorporate that in my life, my fitness, my friends and family, so even like working out with my friends, me working out, but also me being vulnerable and talking about those things that affect me as a person, right? There's no separation. And as I've been doing that and I've found clarity, that's been the crazy thing. There's been people who I was really close friends with or people who were really in my inner circle who have now been repelled by me doing that more. And there's some people now who are attracted, like, hey, bro, like, I actually didn't know you were that deep. Or, like, I didn't know you worked out that much. Oh, I see you working out and like, I see the results. Like, what did you do? Right. Or, like, hey, man, I didn't know you were a Christian. I'm a Christian too. Like, hey, I love the way. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 100%. Yeah, yeah. No, no, no. But let's talk about it because the thing is, it's not just about me, right? It's because how have you navigated that situation? Because for me, I'm in it, right? So I maybe you have the tools, like as you've been walking through that season, like how have you been dealing like losing friends and like partners? Like what has that been like for you, right? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Run it back. Yeah. 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 100%. Yeah. Yeah. No. Just trust me. I know. I mean, we're not gonna expose you here, but I know some stories, bro. 100%. Yeah. 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 It's up to you. Yeah. Yeah. Bro. Yeah. Yeah. Fact. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of it definitely working out has been a way I relieve a lot of stress. I've been journaling a lot more. Like I've actually been journaling since I was a kid, but it's been more taken more seriously. Someone gifted me last year 5-minute journal, and that really helped me do it more regularly and be more disciplined. But I also have a separate journal too that takes a little bit longer. Yeah, take care of myself, self care. But people think self care like it helps me navigate thoughts that I'm having. Like there's a lot of things that someone asks me a question like, "How am I doing?" And then I genuinely go through my day. But also, I'm able to then bring to light those emotions. So, for example, like during the breakup, during a hard day at work, whatever the case may be, I actually write those feelings down and then I'm able to then go deeper and then come back. Hey, like why was I feeling that? And it's been interesting to see as I've journaled for such a long time. So I look back at old journals like when I was 25, and even like last year, I looked at because I have the same journal. I looked, I'm like, damn, bro, like I'm actually the problem because I'm the psycho in this. Like I was in the same situation last year. I am the problem. But also then there's be situations like, nah, bro, you're not the problem. You're just in the wrong environment or with the wrong people, or there's a part of it that just you just need to tweak. And journeying helps. Also self care. I mean, I do skincare. I do, get mani pedis, bubble baths, bro. Game changer. Listen, for the fellas out there, I know there's some people who are gonna watch it and say something. I'm like, listen, try it. Just try it. Just try it. I'm just saying. Go get a manicure, pedicure, take a bubble bath, and see how you feel. Ooh, new and lately, actually, cold plunges and sauna, fire, fire, fire. And then, and also, I think a lot of it too is like, I still go out. I still go out, I'll have a couple of drinks here and there, like socially. But it's also, I think a lot of it's like the environments I'm in. Like, me and my homies, it's funny, like, we'll like just kick it at the crib or even go out. And it's just like, we have so much fun because our environment, we protect our energy. Where I'm like, I don't have to worry about being a certain type of person with my friends. I just go, I'm just me, and they're just them, and we're just kicking it. Yeah. So I think the thing is, how do I play? I protect my peace, bro. Even lately, I haven't been going out. I'm just like, partly because I'm like, I don't want to be in those environments anymore. And also, like, seeing certain people triggers me because I still need to do that healing work. So, up until I'm in a space where I'm okay to see certain people, so I just stay at home. I'm just like, no. And I think triggered less. That's what it is. Because, and that's been the thing too. Like, as I'm saying, as I've been journaling, there's certain people I would write about and I look at how they triggered me before. Now I'm just like, oh, cool. I saw so and so. I felt something, but it's not what I felt last time. And it's just like, and also then you realize sometimes people just be moving mad, but I'm also like, and I think that's the thing, that's going back to what I said before. It's like going to the root of it. I'm like, why is it a trigger for me? It shows that there's, again, people expose us. It shows like there's still work I need to do because they wouldn't be able to push the button if the button wasn't there. So like now it's like focusing on getting that button smaller and smaller. Yeah. And that also just means like I just stay my ass at home. Yeah. I mean, you can still get in trouble at home, but I just stay out of trouble in general, man. I'm just like, yeah. So I'm doing Check-in 2.0. It's a men's mental health event, but it's also invites women into the conversation. So the concept of the check-in is something I found last year that's helped me navigate all, I guess, the mess and like the damage and the brokenness I felt. Basically learning how to check in with yourself, like, doing those things. Like it doesn't have to be journaling or whatever. Like everyone has different tools. That's what I learned from that book, Light. It's like figure out what works for you. That's what works for me. And even in this season of my life, that's what's worked. Maybe next year it's gonna change, right? So how do you check in with yourself, but also how do you check in with your other the males in your life, like your brothers, your friends, your dad, whoever it is, right? But also the aspect of it, the third aspect is having a support system, and this is like women who are more emotionally intuitive also learning how they can check in with men because sometimes they do a really good job of it. There's sometimes I've had Christian's conversation with my sister and she's helped me reframe a lot of the things I thought about. And then she's also like, nah, bro, that was wild. No, you have every right to feel that way. Or even people I've dated, right? But I think also the flip side that we don't talk about is men have been conditioned to, not every man does it well, but can come in your life and be like, hey, I feel a type of way, you sit and you listen. There's a certain way we just taught how to do it. But when the reverse happens, that's why there's those memes of like, women and accountability, not a thing. Because, and they're like, oh, like, be honest. If a man was actually be honest with how they felt about certain situations, it's not received the same way. And that's what we're trying to kind of talk about. And I'm really excited because I throw this event for men and women. And I have two women on the panel. Super excited for this conversation. We did it last year, and I think it's needed. And yeah, I'm just creating content on my page to create more awareness. It's going to be the last event for the year, but yeah, just follow my page. If you're looking at this, I'm always doing a lot of cool things. If you want to collaborate, if you have ideas, if you want to sit down and just talk, have coffee, whatever it is. Follow the boy, bro. Okay, we gotta. You and me need to do a workout with the tribe. Okay, we gotta set that up. Yeah, I see you, my boy. My boy be looking lean. Okay, you've been putting in work, man. Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, it's gonna happen. We're gonna lock one in after this for sure. Everything is happening the way it's supposed to be happening. Okay, I think it's not one word. It's two words. C'est la vie. Yeah, it is what it is. Sometimes that there's nothing like there's nothing else. It is what it is. It is what it is. I'm like, there's nothing else that needs to be said. I just honestly the past 2 years, like I look back at certain moments where I'm just like, I just said, I'm just like, wow, that really happened. Cool. I'm like, yeah. I think the mo, yeah. I think now I'm learning to just laugh more because there's some moments stuff happens, I just laugh. I'm like, wow, that really happened. And I think I've because for some people they've thought it's a negative way of dealing with it because like you don't deal like no, that's actually how I do. I just laugh at these because I'm like sometimes it's actually just humor. It's actually fun. I'm like that actually just happened, and it was so funny because even last year I'll be talking to my friend, like one of my best friends, he's in South Africa, and even with a lot of the people, they're like, bro, like I feel like sometimes like you're living a movie, bro, because the way your life is happening right now, it's just like there's these unexpected plot twists where I'm just like it feels like people are writing my life. Like there's like okay, it's just too calm right now. Let's just switch it up a little bit. Let's just throw a little bit of like just just a little curveball just to see what happens. Just for the plots. Yeah, yeah. Oh, 100%. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And even with that, because I want to be very intentional with what I mean. I'm not just saying you're letting life happen to you. It's more just there's moments where like it's that's how I've been able to cope with it. Where I'm like I said, I don't try to take things personally and I'm not too emotionally invested. I try to detach myself, but also there's a level of accountability where I'm like, okay, this happened. Why did it happen? And getting to the root of it, I'm like, okay, this is my role in this. How do I make sure this doesn't happen? Or how do I lessen the occurrence of this happening regularly? But also like there's some things like you said, surrender. There's some things I have no control over. And I think that's been the thing for me, going back to the fact like I have no choice in what is going to happen today. The fact that I woke up today is a blessing, and I think one thing that's helped with me journaling, it's like the 5 minute journal. It starts with like three things that you're grateful for, and when you're always in a space of gratitude, you're just like, yeah, people are friends have left my life or work is wilding right now, but I'm like, I have a roof over my head. I ate today. I have friends and family. There's always something to be grateful about. I'm like, bro, even in Vancouver, it's a nice day today. It's not raining. It was snowing yesterday. There's something to be grateful for. And I think when you're in that space of just like, yes, it is what it is, but also I'm also grateful for the opportunity of being able to live the life that I'm living right now, because I think we take for granted the fact that we're living in a life that someone is dreaming of right now. I'm living the life that I dreamt of at one point in my life. So I'm grateful for that. Yeah. So I'll leave on that note. Appreciate you for taking the time. They can find me on the gram. My photography and content page is Outlandish Visuals. That's my personal one. That's my modeling, and like where I'm just a goofball. It's just living outlandishly. But also, your boy's on YouTube now, so follow the boy on Outlandish Visuals. Everything is linked in my bio. So I mean, you find everything. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, appreciate you for the platform, man. Like this is dope, man. Yeah, I want to say before I leave, because we don't give enough roses to the homies. I've seen your journey and even you doing this, and I know what it takes to run a podcast and do it consistently. But also just like watching all the other episodes you've done, man. Like it's like you'd be surprised when you look back at like season one and you get to season five, and like how much you've grown as a person. And I think kudos to you, man. Like, I'm super proud of like the version that you're becoming, and then just keep at it. And I think, like you said, give yourself grace, man. Like you're gonna make mistakes, but I'm like, as man to man, I appreciate you, man. Like you're doing a good job. Even if you mess up, keep your head up and stand 10 toes down on what you want to do and chest up, man. And like people don't like it. It is what it is. Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, 100%. We're not letting anybody do that. Yeah, yeah. Appreciate that, man. Thank you. All right. Peace.